Welcome, welcome, welcome. So we're going to do tonight what we did last week as well, which is we're actually going to settle in with a little practice first. Then we'll kind of set up for a bit of a longer practice together, and then do our usual reflection and connection. And many familiar faces, and yet for those who are new, welcome to the San Francisco Dharma Collective. I'm Eve, one of the teachers here. This is an entirely volunteer-run space. So even though we live under capitalism, we're actually not somehow so involved in capitalism in this space. And in fact, living here, this unbroken stream of teachings that have been around for thousands of years, practiced in this way out of generosity and in community. And there's something very encouraging about that, that there is another way of being and a way of building community and learning how to train the heart and the mind. And I think there's also something, very encouraging that we truly could be anywhere, or we could be on one device of many doing literally anything, and yet we chose to be here together tonight. And I want to thank all of you for coming here tonight to be together. Practicing together makes a huge difference. It actually allows the feeling of practice, as it's said in the traditions, to be kind of multiplied. Like our practice itself has more benefit, not only to us, but to all beings when we practice here together. So thank you for being here. And let's go ahead and settle in for just a moment. And we can settle in slowly, not trying to abruptly shift from paying attention to the outer world to paying attention to the inner world. Just starting to notice the experience of the body seated. And feeling in the body, noticing the sensations and qualities of sensation in the body. We might notice this funny quality that when we pay attention to the body, it actually starts to feel as though it's becoming heavier or kind of settling into place. So inviting this quality of stilling, coming into wholeness and presence with the body. Noticing through our other senses, noticing sound around us. And this quality of curiosity, receptivity, receiving the body just as it is, not trying to change or shift, and receiving sounds just as sound, tones and textures. And of course, there are thoughts, maybe even memories or images, and seeing if we can simply allow them to be received with that same curious openness. Not trying to push away thoughts, but also not getting caught up and carried away. For just these couple moments, we invite those thoughts to gently fade into the background. They will certainly be there later. And instead, bringing all of our attention and awareness to the experience of this body and this breath. Last week, we were really focusing on this quality of essence love, this simple, bright feeling of okayness. And no matter what has happened or not happened in this last day, no matter what you've seen on the news, is there something that's just okay deep within us? Maybe we have a glimpse or a moment, we touch that sense of goodness, and then it kind of dissipates. No problem. You can just touch that feeling and then let it go naturally. And then again, notice, is there something that's already good, already okay? Basic quality, a basic nature of goodness within us. Just a couple more moments here, feeling the body and the breath. And without too much thinking or creating a concept or idea, maybe noticing, revealing the goodness that might already be here. Thank you for your settling in. So, for folks who haven't been here, we're making our way through this very beautiful and simple text by Tsoknyi Rinpoche. He's a Tibetan Buddhist teacher, and this text really brings us through the fundamental principles of how we become more awake and available for ourselves and others. And in the last session, we were talking about this term, what he calls that spark, or that essence love. And he, so beautifully describes this essence love. I think he calls it that simple brightness of who we are. And it's interesting because he's building this idea of essence love, this brightness of who we are, not because of anything we've done, not because of anything that we need to achieve, but that basic kind of primordial goodness. It's not actually something that needs to be built up. He calls it as kind of the natural arising from emptiness and clarity. So often we hear these words like emptiness and clarity, and it sounds vacant, it sounds far away. But instead here, this idea that there's the beautiful idea of spacious, open awareness. He says here, a vast open space in which possibilities emerge and combine, dance together for a while and vanish. You'll ask, in this way, you can glimpse your basic nature, the freedom to experience anything and everything. So this idea that when we actually are not trying to do anything, not aiming to achieve the love of another or create the most impressive thing, that what we naturally find is already there is this infinite openness of possibilities and this luminous, bright clarity. And these two qualities as the natural state of mind, that would be pretty great. Having that vast, spacious openness, that sense of kind of brightness, right? Not just open and dull, but bright. And yet what he's pointing out here, and is so core in the Buddhist teaching, is that there's also a real sense of just love and goodness, that spark of love and goodness that's within us. And I kind of highlighted last week this piece that he writes around the difference between that kind of essential love that we have within ourselves and the conditioned love that we often seek in relationships. And, his estimation of our conditioned love is a little harsh, but not totally inaccurate, that it's a very commodity-based exchange, right? We give love in order, implicitly or explicitly, to receive love. And that's not necessarily anything wrong with that. It's just that there's a give and a take at all times with this kind of love. So there's not really a stability or security at the core of it. And it creates what he calls this kind of sense of wounded love, where sometimes we experience what we want and what we appreciate, and sometimes we feel thwarted or hurt. And we start to relate to love with almost like this kind of armor around us. Like we don't trust when someone is actually giving us that warmth, or we've been hurt in the past, so it's hard for us to feel open again. And it's interesting to think about that. Some of us have had the great fortune of long-standing, good relationships in which there is a sustainable love. And last week, I think Noemi was talking about the kind of love we have with friends. They may not have that same quality of romantic love where there's more kind of that heightened sense of woundedness. But there is, this interesting quality of, can we not turn away from and not engage with love between two people, but can that foundational piece of our essence love really brighten us from the inside and brighten our love and ability to be with others? Because this kind of, give and take, or this wounded love, it really can prevent us from feeling the natural beingness of another. So the idea isn't to stop trying to have desire and care and enjoyment about being with others. But there's this, can we enjoy like the naturalness of love from the other being? Because we can enjoy the naturalness of love from within us. I know this is vague and broad, but there's something really interesting here about applying our aspiration for relation. I mentioned that relationships charm. If you don't know, India, Israel, and the bodies, and where the decompose, pulled apart, tackle, not that romantic. What she do is that, you know, the love is the ground in living the being the least vested parts of ourselves, least um, the youngest parts of ourselves often. And then when we live in relationships, it's all out there. Like we get to kind of see sometimes beneath the surface. So the romantic relationship, if we treat it as spiritual path, to really see where we're blocked. Because sometimes these blockages, like what is in between us and that sense of essence love, it can be very cloudy or unclear. Like we're like, I don't understand, like, why do I keep hitting up against self-criticism or judgment, or why are things, you know, it's like we can't sometimes see or feel or know ourselves because we're like in our own skin. It's hard to get outside of that and see ourselves clearly and see these obstacles clearly. But it's guaranteed that in romantic relationship, you will get to see them. And you may not make use of them. You might just be like, that's just their shit, or I don't want to deal with my shit. Like, let's just move on. Let's let's keep doing other things. But that opportunity to see that super raw, vulnerable stuff, nearby, then all
Eve,
yeah.
online there's an audio problem. I don't know if
Oh,
anyone has any recommendations. It's
what
just a
kind of
little
audio
echo.
problem? Okay, we're gonna how about now? Any better?
I keep talking, keep going. I'm sorry,
Okay.
I'm just not sure. No, it's
Love
still echoing.
relationships, they're so hard. We keep
Thank you.
trying. Is that anything changed online,
It's fine
folks?
now, but the
Okay,
first sentence wasn't, but now it sounds good. Is there
great.
something he just did in the studio? It was perfect. If
Okay.
that did it, that was great. Thanks so much.
What did
Sorry.
you do? Turn this up. Okay, and we turn that off. Okay, sweet. So clearly, we could spend weeks here talking about the relationship of relationships to spiritual path. And I do want to bring this up from time to time because I think it's such an awesome opportunity when we have these misunderstandings and difficulties. I mean, I have, to be honest, only a handful of friends whose relationships I kind of idealize or admire, and I think, wow, they've really got it going on. They still have fights. There's still fear. There's still a regression back to early wounding, right? Like, this isn't necessarily something that only people who haven't figured it out experience. All of us experience of it. And there's this way, again, this vulnerability that occurs in the context of romantic relationships, no matter how many years you've been in them, that it's very rich with opportunity. And when we think about love, in the context of essence love, it really is it's almost an entirely different quantity and quality. And it doesn't prevent us, or it doesn't expect us to no longer engage in romantic love. It does possibly, and this is coming more from an attachment theory point of view, is that if we can experience that sense of groundedness and love in here, we've created a stable base within ourself that is easier to navigate the coming and going of difficult times within our relationship. I know this is obvious, but I want to state that again, like that establishment of some sort of ongoing sense of our basic goodness, our okayness, will actually help us with others. And it's interesting because often it's misunderstood, that Buddhism is a very singular practice. We just close our eyes, we focus on ourselves. I mean, we are doing our best when we close our eyes to make this body, heart, and mind ready to be with others, right? That's the purpose, that's the goal. And this essence love practice, there's such a sweetness in, traditional Buddhist teachings. It's simply called Buddha nature. And when we really engage with Buddha nature and see it in ourselves, it overflows. It's like a complete overflowing of our goodness. And Tsoknyi brings up in his book that you see it often in like very young children, just that basic goodness. I mean, they're also have tantrums and other things too. But that sense of, this purity, and not purity as in some sort of morality, but just the goodness and the radiance that is within us, shining through so clearly. And this spark of essence love, it's on its way to kind of the bigger, how would I say, the broader or more comprehensive goal in Buddhist practice, which really is bodhicitta. So not just a sense of love in our own heart, but a sense of love that radiates to all beings. And when you're in a good mood and you had a great coffee and it's a beautiful day and you're not in a rush, and like everybody looks nicer, and you're like, everything's great. I love the city, and like these people, right? It's that sense of like natural overflowing of goodness and okayness, and it kind of literally overflows onto everyone. Earlier this year, not quite last year, we did the whole book on the Guide to the Bodhisattva Way of Life, or Cultivating Bodhicitta, Becoming a Warrior of Compassion. And one of the definitions in that book I love so much is that, this bodhicitta, it is an aspiration that we so deeply know our goodness that the only thing we want is for everyone else to know it too. So it's interesting, this idea of like the goodness doesn't make me want to just go like, bring it to my house, put it in a cupboard and hide it away. Like there's a natural quality that I then want to share it with others. Do you guys have that feeling sometimes when you're feeling, it's like, how do we create that kind of overflowing sense within us? And he also, mentions many times that these practices of essence love, or these practices of reconnecting to the heart, they weren't the first things that he started teaching when he was teaching in the West or teaching in the modern cultures outside of where he grew up. He was teaching all these practices to clear the mind, to get all that attention so that we can have clarity, experience emptiness, but that you cannot sustain those practices if the heart is just, all gunked up with deficiency and comparison and overwhelm. And that these practices so clearly became essential. And he started teaching them over and over and realizing that actually every Buddhist practice at its core does kind of remind you of the spark of essence love, Like it all gets you there. It's not like, oh, we're gonna do these practices in which we feel good, we focus on compassion, or we'll do these practices that are helping us have clarity, understand the mind. Like they are the same. And it is quite interesting. I'm sure some of you have experienced this. When you do a traditional Vipassana meditation retreat, there might not even be that much emphasis on the heart or on compassion. But that over and over focus on the breath, on the body, on the four foundations of mindfulness, goodness and ease arises. Even if you're distracted like every 10 seconds, like just settling in, like when we're not distracted all over the place, that goodness, it just kind of manifests without effort, without any need to push it and be somewhere different. So yeah, and I also love that he highlights we get a great experience and opportunity to notice and love when things are really hard, actually. It's kind of forcing us to these more core aspects of what we can. Like I had a hard moment, but wow, I don't know what it is I can rely on. Everything feels so overwhelming. And then we find that kind of ground that rises up beneath us. We're like, oh, I'm okay. Like, I'm gonna be okay. I'm already okay. And one practice that I want us to do, and then we'll talk a little bit more about Bodhicitta, is a practice of Tonglen. And so folks, I'm sure many people in this room have done a practice of Tonglen. It's traditionally described as this, visualization practice. It's a visualization practice of compassion. And it's one in which we really invite our heart to kind of go towards that bodhicitta, to go towards that sense of caring for other beings. And with Tonglen practice, we actually imagine the huge generosity, this desire to alleviate the suffering of other beings, alleviate their challenges. And at first, that can be a little uncomfortable. Like, I already have enough on my plate. I don't know if I want to invite everyone else's difficulties here too. But what's so cool is we often find that beautiful paradox of compassion, that we turn towards the compassion, we invite more of the compassion, we feel less alone. And there's this kind of activation of like knowing what to do, being able to help, being of service. And in this practice that Tsoknyi teaches is a little different than I usually practice, is one in which we actually turn towards whatever there is within us that's hard to be with right now. And we start there. I start with that natural motivation of, I want to feel better. And so that, I assume, does everyone here have something that's hard to be with right now? Yeah. And even, that piece of like that recognizing how many of us have what could be minor or could be more significant struggles right now. There's like a little bit of an opening, even just with that. And in this case, for this practice, something that's hard to be with that involves someone else. Everybody have something like that? Usually it does involve someone else. Sometimes it's just hard to be with our own garbage dump of a mind, right? Yep, we can find that. And this is a technical term. I've really explored it, and I've mentioned this before, but I love, Thich Nhat Hanh had such a sweet way of describing the mind and its processes, and he described that sometimes it arises as flowers, and then they decay, and they become compost. So that's where I got garbage dump of the mind. And I was like, oh, I'm in the garbage dump phase. It hasn't become flowers yet, right? It's on its way. So this natural process. But in this particular practice, we think of, some sort of situation we are in. Maybe it's recent or new. Maybe it's something ongoing in which we experience struggle with another person. And I'm going to, spoiler alert, just tell you about the practice, because I think sometimes when we're trying to visualize, think of a story, like do it all at once, it's a little challenging. So in this practice, we bring to mind a difficult situation with a loved one or a friend. And we, first of all, turn towards ourselves and kind of like touch the very heart of the matter with compassion, is feeling that kind of, that longing to not be in pain. Just that natural longing. You know, we feel that even like, oh, I want my knee to not ache when I'm meditating. I'm going to move my leg, right? So many instances we have throughout the day of, I want to not be in pain. I want to not suffer right now. So we turn towards that natural, like, oh, I wish it didn't hurt. And sometimes we really push that aside. We just like push through, like it hurts, who cares? So just that first tender piece of turning towards our own difficulty with another person. And then imagining this possibility of giving ourselves love and warmth and radiance and light, like exactly what the heart needs. And then, and this one's challenging, so I'm telling you, so you choose someone you feel comfortable doing this with. Then you imagine that person who you're struggling with, and you imagine whatever it is in them that's blocking their basic goodness. Like, not a whole narrative and story about their life and their history, but just, wow, in some ways, this person is blocked from residing in their goodness. They can't access it. And we let the heart naturally long for them to be more free, right? And then sending the radiance that they could become more free. So very generous practice, like very generous Tonglen. And sometimes we don't feel altogether that generous. We feel depleted or overwhelmed. And if that's the case, stay with you. Like, I'm not going to tell you, you have to practice for others. Like, really, you know, practice for what really needs to be nourished and fed right now. So does that narrow it down to maybe one person you could practice with? I recommend choosing one, even if you have a number of folks you could practice with. And like, no world leaders right now. Like, let's go easy on ourselves for the moment. Yeah, I mean, that's a nice one, but maybe you could do that at home. Let's keep it, let's keep it a little more reasonable tonight. Yeah. So everyone have someone in mind or a question about this practice? Okay. Friends at home, all the sound good? Okay. Hi, Sylvia and Gina. Nice to see you. Okay. So we're gonna do another practice here. Yeah, the mic is kind of in a funny position tonight, I will say. It'll be good enough. So finding our way back. Let's settle in by inhaling our shoulders up to our ears, and then exhaling down the back. Again, inhaling up to the ears, exhaling down the back. One last time. And softening through the face, really softening through the eyes. And softening, relaxing, melting through the cheekbones and the jaw. And continuing that sense of softening and opening through the heart and the belly. And to help balance our attention and our presence when we inhale, imagine that we're inhaling a vividness, lengthening up through the spine. And as we exhale, we're relaxing and releasing, softening through the front of the body. So balancing these qualities with the inhale, that vivid, awake, bright quality. And with our exhale, relaxing, releasing. A couple more moments here. If the mind gets carried away, no problem. Just relax and release, and then return to the breath. A couple more moments here and refining this quality of attending to the breath. As we pay attention to the breath, we pay attention through the entire inhale, the entire exhale. And as we pay attention, we do so with a kind of precision, but also a gentleness. We're not clamping down, inviting this quality of attending to the breath to have that clear, bright precision, that softness. And attending to the breath in this loving way, the way we attend to the face of someone we care about deeply. And in that way, it starts to feel as though the breath is breathing with us, or the breath is even breathing us. And this union of our attention and the breath, like the rider on the horse, becomes perfectly attuned. We notice the full undulation of breath through the body. Totally natural to lose that thread of attention, no problem. But see if in returning, it's almost that sense of a loving reunion with the breath. Couple more moments here, entering the breath fully. Now we shift attention and awareness from the breath to the mind, memory, imagination. Giving ourselves a moment to turn towards some area of difficulty or challenge that we are experiencing with a friend or a loved one. In just a moment here, just bringing up the basics of how it feels, maybe the emotions involved, the sense of hurt or frustration. And notice, as best as possible, the way that this impacts the mind, heart, and body. And feel, sense, or imagine just a natural rising up of compassion and care for the way this impacts the mind, heart, and body, for the sadness or disappointment, frustration, uncertainty. And for a couple moments here, feeling this sense both of the challenge and this aspiration that we could feel ease and feel peace from this difficulty. Recognizing the difficulty at an embodied level, recognizing the difficulty at the psychological level of thoughts and emotions. And as much as possible, dropping the story, why it's happening, how it's happening, just this the simple experience of challenge and difficulty. For a couple moments, allowing those sensations and that experience to simply be held in our kind attention and awareness. We're meeting, turning towards, making space for what's right here. And then without trying to shift or change the experience, notice, is that sense of basic goodness also here? Maybe beneath or around, maybe permeating through like sunlight through a cloud, is that intrinsic gold nature of the heart also right here? And if it's hard to touch it, no problem. Just imagine that that goodness of the heart is here. And with our next breaths, in a very gentle way, with the inhale, we're drawing in and recognizing this difficulty, this struggle. And with our exhale, we're radiating that goodness, that warmth, that love, that intrinsic, indelible, beautiful light of our being. And continuing with the next inhale, recognizing the challenge, the discomforts. And then exhale, radiating that antidote, that sense of the sun bursting through these clouds. With a couple more breaths, even more gently, just inviting ourselves to be with and turn towards what's hard. And then simply feeling a sense of care, kindness, and support. Not trying to change or fix or judge anything, just care, just love, just presence. And then gently, as much as possible, releasing the story and the context. Noticing any shifts or changes in the body. And simply feel the presence of loving awareness. And gently shifting now our attention to the mind and imagination once again. And bringing to mind this being who we are struggling with. Someone maybe we know well or maybe not so well. And without needing to get into their story in any way, recognizing that there are certain ways in which this being is blocked from their own goodness. Maybe catalyzing the behaviors or actions that are creating harm for us. This being, like so many of us, doesn't always feel or reside in that sense of love. And there might be some challenge here, but can you feel this desire or care for this being also to be more free, to feel more connected to that love and goodness? If it feels hard or forced, no problem. Just imagine what it would be like to feel that sense of care. And keeping the image of this being in mind, allowing it to feel focusing and bright. Again, with our breath, we draw in the difficulties or challenges, the obstacles this being may face in knowing their goodness. And we exhale with this generous heart. May I radiate and send out my own love so this being may know their love. Continuing each breath, drawing in the image of this being, and then exhaling this beautiful aspiration, this wish of sending and supporting the revealing, the shining of this other being in their love and their light. This practice is like a exercise of the heart, like a gymnasium of the heart. It may not always be easy to extend the heart in this way, but we may find the strength that our heart goes through helps it keep open and open and open. So a couple more breaths, drawing in and extending out. Imagining this being free, at ease, calm, supported. And then gently letting the story, the image, all dissipate. Inviting ourselves to just lean back into a sense of awareness, infused with love. This body, heart, and mind, a body, heart, and mind of compassion. Thank you for your practice. So we get a chance here now to, in community, connect and reflect together. So for those of you who haven't been here before, and even those of you who have, just a reminder that to co-create community each week, we have to also kind of reinvest and reinvigorate this sense of compassion. Compassion in how we listen to one another, and compassion in how we speak to one another. So when folks are maybe sharing or reflecting, it's like we are seeing their already awake Buddha nature. What do we think? Does that sound, can we do that? Wonderful. So are there any questions or reflections on that practice that folks have? It's a little tricky. Obstacles, areas of interest. I don't know if your silence is a good sign or a bad. Madeline, hi. Oh, hold on. I'm not sure if we can hear you yet.
Okay, sorry. The host had me unmuted.
Okay.
I had low expectations. I'm not going to lie.
Hey, it's a good way to roll.
I was really pleasantly surprised. And I appreciate it particularly when you kept us out of story about the whole thing. And
Yeah.
I found in the end, I was really able to bypass the story and maybe see and have gratitude to be able to hold all this wounding that got the person to possibly be acting that way, especially when you told me to feel into my goodness. And I could see that it's almost unconscious that that behavior gets translated into a little bit of, even though I'm putting the anger on the other person, in some ways, I'm also feeling bad about myself. And at this moment, when I tuned into my own goodness, I don't know what happened. It was crazy. I just got freed up to hold his goodness and his struggle. And the two just, I can't describe it except that the whole thing just seemed to relax. That would be a good way to describe it. But I really love the fact that the discovery that even though it looked like I was mad at him and blaming him, there was something that was wrong with me, fundamentally wrong with me. And until I can actually soften that, I got very defensive and protective and kept wanting to go, you. And
Yeah.
it was just very surprising. I love that. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. And sometimes, I don't know if this happened for you, sometimes when the anger settles, there can be a real sweetness and there can also be a real sadness.
Yes. And because you told me to stay out of story, I actually was able to not run from the sadness, which did surprise me.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I'm a total sadness pusher. I think it's the prima materia. I think it's the best thing we can touch into. It just has such depth for us. It's really such a true place, right? So
Yeah, but
you.
I do think your key is to touch my own basic goodness seemed to be the thing that unlocked everything, because that dissipated the anger, which allowed for the
So
sadness
glad.
underneath to be heard. Yeah.
Yay, wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Nice to see you. Yes.
The sadness thing, yeah. It's interesting how I had the same feeling is when I'm holding grace for the other person, that I felt bad that, they're experiencing this, or they're hanging on to this anger too, right? Which kind of sucks. And then I felt bad for me because I'm like, ugh, Then I was so disappointed how easily I was distracted by apple bottom jeans, boots with the fur, and I completely lost it. I was like, oh my God. So I need more work.
Oh, well, it's interesting. At the ultimate level, right? All phenomena arising are empty of inherent nature, but we don't live there. I mean, I delighted so much in that song because just I had the craziest smile. I was like, I look like an insane person. It's like, but and it's interesting too when we do get distracted. That sense, I kind of cued it with the breath, the reunion back home, and to just love the reunion, oh, I went there, now because it's so instructive. Some of you know I'm in such a tender place of taking care of my dad who's leaving this earthly plane, and it makes you so attuned to the world. I feel like I'm just not wearing skin, you can just feel everything, and I'm feeling the self-criticism and kind of negativity even more than I normally do. It's I can see myself very clearly. And there's such an opportunity when you see it in practice and you're like, oh, I do that. I get distracted and then I get down on myself. And right, that's the moment of oh, this too, And yeah, I was noticing in practice right now, just in this place where I am, I can see all the content that's coming and arising and all the kind of flavor of content coming and arising. So it's so sweet when we can actually notice it. Yeah, I would pay that guy to do that again. Or girl, or who knows, or a non-binary person. They got good taste, and a really loud sound system. So, yeah, thank you.
I found myself at first really able to focus on the person and to tune in, but first of all, tune in on my own sense of basic goodness, and then tune in on the other person. And it was a good exchange of breathing in and out, of breathing in the issue and breathing out, emitting just sort of this web of basic goodness around the situation. It was good for a while, and then I got really lost in the story.
Yeah.
It's really difficult because it's an ongoing deal, and it's very difficult to keep from getting lost in the story of it.
Yeah.
But then I would catch myself and I'd go back to, how does this feel? What's the process of giving, this Tonglen. And I really have to remember that my sense of basic goodness, my sense of basic okayness it's not based on conditions. And I really like the way that you said that in times of difficulty, sometimes it's much easier to get in touch with that.
Yeah.
Because, it's nice, when you were talking about when you've had a good coffee and everybody's looking bright and chipper and that's very conditional. It's very based on circumstances. But when I've had times in my life when there was nothing in my circumstances that was okay. Everything was fucked up. And coming in touch with the idea of basic goodness at that point, the sense of I'm okay in spite of all this stuff, it's a little bit easier to see how it's not conditional, because there ain't nothing in my world at that point that's contributing to my sense of basic goodness.
Yeah.
And at that point, so when I've been able to have that experience, try to carry that throughout the not horrible times, and to remember that, that sense of it. It's not because the waves were really good today and I had a good session. It's
Yeah.
not because I had a really, really nice meal and a good conversation. It's not,
Yeah.
you know, so that's what I have to keep in mind. And when I'm able to do that, then it's easier for me to walk through the world and try to stay in touch with being kind without getting lost in the story.
Yeah.
Because the story messes me up every time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you, Jimmy. I mean, I think one thing, that Tsoknyi said that I had to read it like 6 times. So it's like, if you can really land in this idea of our own basic goodness and everyone's basic goodness, there would be like no grudges whatsoever. Like we wouldn't hold on when someone we love, disrespects us or makes us feel unseen. We'd be like, oh, they're blocked in their basic goodness. Sometimes I am too. Whew, done. Like that is liberation, right? That is liberation to be able to, of course, like we are all stuck in our stuff and it's very hard to not be selfish. Let's just be honest. Like the way we orient in the world, we often aren't always thinking of others and that creates harm, period. And then if we can just kind of see that not as that person did this or didn't do this, but they're blocked in their goodness. I mean, it would be so simple. We'd be like, hey, you're blocked in your goodness and you're acting like a jerk, right? There'd be like no charge with it. And I'd be like, oh my God, I am. Like, but instead we like get wrapped up, like we just get bound up. So something so powerful, so simple, the essence love idea, but it actually, it really underpins so much of our psychological distress is being blocked in our basic goodness. And often by, habitual patterns of the way that we see the world, the way that we experience the world that are based in old story. It's, it's all fake news. It's all old news, fake news, bad stuff, right? Like they don't like me, I'm not good enough, it's not enough. It's really, it's very sobering to try to really recognize, and this is one that's been really kind of blowing my mind in rereading this book at this particular time in my life, of if basic goodness or essence love is the foundation, all that other stuff is just construct. All that like not enough, all that should have, all that needed, like that's not me actually, right? I mean, I know this is obvious, but when you really actually feel it, you're like, that's all stuff I built. And, my dad, I've mentioned this, he's 91 and he is like, may all of us have the beauty and blessing of dying the way he's dying. He is loved, he's at peace, and he's like, not in pain. And he is overflowing with love. Like I am in the presence of so much basic goodness all day. And I'm like, oh my God. Like I feel like an overfull balloon that's gonna pop, but it's with love. And I'm like, this is not how this guy rolled through his whole life. Right? But I'm like, no, this is him. This is like stripped to the bare essence, and so many friends and loved ones are coming through, and like all of us, it's like this wave. I mean, it's so sad because someone's leaving this world, but the love, and many of us have had that experience with loved ones, and it's not always easy. There's no guarantee you get to have like a good end, and things could change. But like when you get to see that kind of essential love and goodness, my God, it's such a gift. And I think to be able to receive that transmission of not like, oh, what a lucky guy, he's so good, right? It's like, that's all of us, really. The rest of it's all this bullshit that we put on, society puts on, that we get confused and deluded. So sometimes we get these like unearned hits of essence love, like it just bursts out of us, seemingly out of nowhere. But we can kind of start making ourselves more, there's this beautiful saying that, awakening You can't force awakening. It's an accident, but we can make ourselves more accident prone. You can make yourself more like essence love prone, make ourselves in the condition of kind of noticing what does it feel like when we have even those glimpses of it. And then what is it like when we can see it in others? And then can we start having that point of view of, oh, something's blocking it, instead of I'm wrong, I'm bad, I did it, like, oh, something's blocking it. Like it's such a loosening around our access to that feeling, which I think, yeah, not always easy to touch. And then, naturally from our essence love, it like flows over. It's like a river flowing over its own banks. It goes to bodhicitta, to this desire that everybody has that sense of love. And I want to read his definition of bodhicitta here. Yeah, I like this little. The essence love, a small, bright experience of okayness. I'm like, that's totally doable. He says that the Buddha's teachings, all of them, essentially point to this cultivation of a deep and active caring for the fate of all living creatures. And he says, one of the simplest methods for developing this is Tonglen, this sending and taking, that is like training ourselves to care about others' difficulties and others' suffering. And then he says here, Tonglen extends beyond those we don't even know personally, that to all individuals who experience difficulties. The point is to simply remember that the world is filled with an infinite number of beings, and to think of all of them in their own way are living creatures who want to live and thrive. That all beings wish to avoid the delusionment that comes from losing essence love. So like Tonglen is this invitation, this aspiration that everyone could be connected to their own love. So it's very different than like, let me give you mine. It's like, let me give you mine so you see yours. Like it's such a generosity, right? It's that true generosity. So bodhicitta, is, as he describes it, it's becoming fully awake and fully able to do whatever we can do to bring to halt the difficulty and struggles that lead to wars, and to usher in the peace and contentment that most of us think is a distant fantasy. This unconditional wakefulness, in the Sanskrit term bodhicitta, is made up first of the word bodhi, which has its derived from and translated as awake or awakened, a profound and vibrant alertness that absolutely cuts through all mental and emotional residue, and that tends to cloud our normal awareness. It's a state of awareness in which we see quite clearly the various strategies we typically adopt in order to get through the day. So this like bodhi, just taking the bodhi, like these moments of like startling clarity that we get. And this beautiful metaphor so often used in Buddhism around feeling that we're living in the dream, like asleep, like we're not seeing reality as it is. Like in a dream, you think all of the characters in the dream are real, but actually it's just your dream, right? So there's this way in which we're projecting onto all the characters in our world with our story and our narrative, and then occasionally we just have these moments of awakening of, oh my God, I don't know what's going on with that I don't know what's going on with them. I projected. I don't know what's going on with them. I ignored them. I don't know what's going on. I elevated them. Like all these ways that we orient to others in the world, that's a dream-like. It's delusional. And these moments of like that clear awakening, they happen often, actually, but they don't happen when we're distracted. On our phone, worrying about why someone's angry at us, Like there's the ways that we get lost are quite simple, but they can truly propagate and fill our entire life. So Bodhi is like not that special, but we actually have to be here for it. I'm curious, has anyone had a recent experience of that kind of actually seeing things clearly as they are? That they're willing to share, I should have said that. When you get kind of shook out. Yeah.
I sometimes have those experiences when it's just like, and like I see myself in every single person. It's just like almost like if it's I'm looking at me, or this person is me in a different, like a different plane, but that's me. Like,
Yeah.
Or I see somebody in the street, I go, that's me in that life.
Beautiful.
And it gives me a very different perspective of the person that I'm looking at. If I'm thinking I'm essentially looking at myself.
Yeah.
But and it's usually when I'm very present when I'm riding my bike.
Yeah.
Because I have to be on, like especially in this city.
Yeah.
And I ride through the Tenderloin, so sometimes I see some stuff that's
Hard. Yeah.
and it really, one, it humbles me, but really brings me back here.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. And I think, you could easily kind of shut down, right? We could like see, but not, that way we can see, but not see, like and to remain open, right? And that's the citta part, right? So awake and open, right? And it's hard to be awake without that opening naturally happening, because if we're really seeing reality as it is, yeah, we are just like everybody else. Like 99.9%, right, of our genes shared, like we are truly like others in so many more ways than we're not. And so this awakeness also has this quality of very clear seeing, which is seeing interdependence and impermanence at all times, our connection with everyone, and that everything is changing. It's like a heady trip. And it actually makes things quite beautiful, but it's so hard to hold. There's so many, we have to cut so much wood and carry so much water. We have to do so many tasks. It can be hard to touch in, but really, especially that Bodhi part, we can do it all day long, all the time. We can just kind of click in like, wait, oh my God, we're at the Dharma Collective. Wow. Okay. Yeah, look around. All these, like instead of that habitual kind of, I already know what's happening. I'll be leaving here and then I parked there. And, it's like, no, like right here in this moment. And it's, again, like whatever we pay attention to with that kind of openness, we like adore. It's like inevitable. Like it's hard not to, because you see that impermanence and connection. So as you were describing, as many of you know, it's very traditional in Buddhist teaching to describe seeing everybody as your mother, right? And in a past lifetime or in a future lifetime, like everyone has been in that role. And so when we see him in that way, depending on your relationship with your mother, but at some level, there's a connection, right? So yeah, it's a very beautiful way to do it. Anyone else? Kind of Bodhi? Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, so I am a social worker. And
Yay.
I work with foster youth. And I didn't turn my phone off over the weekend one time, and I got a message from one of the people that I work with.
Yeah.
And there's like a harsh tone to it, and really like it caught me sideways. Usually I'm like, oh, like inured to, the intensity of it.
Yeah.
And so I was sort of just struck by the intensity of what was in the message, what they were trying to get across. And then and I sat with that feeling of being struck, and it dawned on me, I'm like, this is how they must feel themselves.
Yeah.
This must be their internal experience of when something goes wrong.
Yeah.
You know? And so that like interconnectedness
Yeah.
of like being like, oh, this isn't just him, this isn't just me.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. And I guess not a past lifetime. In this lifetime, I was a social worker as well. So, yeah, deep respect. I worked here at General for quite a while. So, I think, it is interesting that, especially if you're a social worker or a frontline care provider, you're like, be open all the time, huh? And so there's a difference between open, meaning like our heart feels everything, and that kind of Bodhi quality of like, I see it as it is, and then the Chitta quality, the heart quality, it also, just that exquisitely fine line between like aloof, detached, but like this more not quite aloof, detached, and not enmeshed and merged. Like there is a space between. It's just hard to find it for most of us. So we're like aloof, detached, because the merged is really painful, right? But that space between, it requires the Bodhi, because that's that quantum view. That's that huge view, right? Where we recognize the equanimity that permeates everything and every experience. We're no longer thinking that this one text I get and my response to it is what's happening. Like we actually do that, like, wow, like all, like you were kind of intuiting there, like all the ways in this person has been showing up in their life and all the ways like we kind of can take that bigger view that allows us to stand right on that razor's edge. And it takes a lot of training to do so. And I think it can be really tricky with Buddhist practice. I had a great question. I was supposed to be teaching in Mexico this week, but needless to say, I'm here. And one of the students there, I zoomed in, and she was asking about working with soldiers who are on the front lines in the battlefield in Ukraine, and whether it was good to teach them compassion or it would be harder for them. I don't have a good answer for you. And I hella respect you. And I think it is, it can be hard to feel quite all the way open when we actually have to be self-protective. And so, I don't think, it has been shown in certain studies, especially that meditation, usually it's mindfulness, not necessarily like meditation, but mindfulness in certain contexts, in certain populations, and in certain times, like in war times or otherwise, and populations where truly there's so little resource that there's a threat mode at all time. Meditation mindfulness isn't always the best and most beneficial thing. Now, that said, I have met folks who do incredible mindfulness work in refugee camps and right where there's still active wars nearby. And I think the skilled right teacher at the right time is adapted in the right way. Anything's possible. But for most of us, like that kind of armor that we put on our heart has a benefit. It's just, do we know that it's armor? And do we know how to release it? Right? That's the key with bodhicitta. Like the bodhicitta aspiration and motivation also infuses the armor. Like we put it up around us so we can be protected. So then we can open our heart when it's needed and appropriate too. So thank you for that comment. I want to say one more thing about bodhicitta. We're going to talk about this more next week, but there's two main levels of bodhicitta, absolute and relative. And I just love keeping these in mind. The relative bodhicitta is, by definition, kind of a dualistic bodhicitta, meaning there is a subject and I'm giving them something, right? I'm going to be nicer to someone in my life. I'm going to help this person who seems distressed. Like I am actively engaging in a sense of care for other beings. But absolute bodhicitta, which is our pure vision, and I kind of hinted at this, is seeing everyone as already free. Like really being able to recognize like everyone's goodness is already right here. So there's no like activity to it. It's like this unbelievable generosity of compassion, just like radiates from us. And when you meet people who have that level of absolute bodhicitta, it's like being in front of like a compassion heat wave. Like it's just like it melts you, right? There's just, they see you, they look at you, and like you feel that they sense your goodness. Goodness you don't even know that you have. They see your goodness. And sometimes we get that from people who love us. You know, we feel like what it'd be like to held in ultimate bodhicitta. So it's a beautiful kind of place for us to notice when it shows up. And, you know, again, I don't think it's that far away. And so to be able to point out what it could or might feel like, very inspiring. So yeah, let's leave it there, since I know we have a couple announcements. I want to get folks back into their relative reality. So coming back to the body, to the breath. Feeling, touching, sensing intrinsic goodness within us. And maybe just in being with each other and reflecting on the teachings, we have that heightened sense of goodness within us. And then almost as though we could wrap our arms around that feeling of okayness and goodness, and then scoop it up and offer it up. We place our hands in front of the chest if that feels natural and inviting, in this gesture of that scooping up, that offering up. And we dedicate all the benefit, all the merit, all the energy of this time together. And through our aspiration of bodhicitta, that all beings everywhere could know peace and ease. That all beings everywhere could be free from inner and outer harms, feel protected and safe. That all beings everywhere could know their goodness, could feel their radiant light. That all beings everywhere could be free. Super, super sweet and special to be with you all.